It's time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by
PSE Archery, Yamaha Outboards, Better the Hunt, Easy Cut, Packer Max, Deer Camp Coffee, Buck Baits, JPO Game Calls, Limwalker Game Calls, Wild Seasoning, Total Peep, Sunrise Archery, Scent Lock, and Scent Blocker.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Oh, does it feel good? Isn't it? I come skipping into the cabin tonight. Right? You come skipping into the cabin tonight.
We had a good week last week, I would have to say.
Life is good.
Right?
Life is good. Hopefully everybody had a great week. If anybody's been following us here on Facebook, they know what we're going to be talking about tonight. You've seen a few of the pictures, but you haven't seen them all and you haven't heard the stories yet.
And the stories are top notch.
That's right. It's going to be a good night tonight.
Absolutely. We're gonna be talking deer hunting. Crossbows and vertical bows.
I'm going to get my shears out of the way if I can get my phone to play correctly again tonight. As usual, it's acting a little slow. Hey, did you have any problems with the internet this week?
Earlier in the week, it was kind of goofy.
They said that, well, it was, I don't think you don't have Comcast, though.
No. I have no charter, but the guys on the work were complaining.
There was big issues, I guess, with Comcast earlier, so hopefully everything plays nice tonight, because that's what we've got here is Xfinity.
Big shout out to Mark Coleman.
Mark is
and Tammy
in the cabin. And as soon as I get this shared here, I will get rocking and rolling for tonight.
Right.
There we go.
Nothing better than talking an hour of successful deer hunting.
You gotta like that. Brian Taylor, and it says Gabby, but I know Gabby's sitting back in the wings waiting, so she's watching on her phone off on the side. Mrs. Delk, how's it going? Kelly DeFaw. Man, you got like the whole entourage in here tonight. Everybody's here to see the one and only Dan DeFaw.
Well, when you got your daughter-in-law coming on the show, it kind of
there you go.
Helps.
Living Everyday Outdoors is joining us tonight. Thanks for tuning in, fellas. Mark Coleman. All right. Let's kick this thing off. You ready, Mr.
Let's do it.
DeFaw?
Yeah.
Get the record going. Here we go. Stand by in 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal podcast. Everybody, host Mike Adams sitting in a nice, chilled, cool cabin here on a blustery Thursday evening with a little rain and wind.
I tell you what, at noon when I went to the store, it was 67 degrees.
Yeah, was.
It was. And then when I came here, it was like a west wind with rain.
Yep. Yeah, James, that is on your side. A couple people have mentioned that in the past, but for the most part, everything is good on our end here. But thank you for noting.
Thank you for noting, yes. You got to check on your side. We've tested that plenty of times.
All right, so let's get rolling, man.
Let's do it.
Talk about our supporters here.
All right. I was down at Buck Baits last night. I talked with Julie. I tell you what, it's that time of year. I picked up some Estrus Max for us while I was there. We'll be using that next week. But
so that's what that smell is.
That's what that smell is. You know, those under the arms, behind the ears? It goes a long ways.
Sure does.
But if you use our promo code UNJ20 at buckbaits.com, you will get 20% off your order. Make sure you go over to the website and check out what they got over at Deer Camp, because they got a ton of new stuff coming on all the time.
Right. And if you're hunting later in the season, make sure you get your order in. You can get it shipped to you before you head out. If you're going up this weekend here in Michigan for the opener, you're going to have to stop in person.
You're going to have to stop at the brick and mortar store at 15 in Dodge Park. It's north of 15 Mile Road on Dodge Park, west side of the street.
Tammy says our audio's off a little there, too, as well.
Really?
Maybe the internet is playing nasty tonight.
It's probably playing nasty. Anyways, well, it's covered in rain. Packer Max. Lincoln Roan getting it done out in the woods. He's also getting it done with Packer Max. And you got to get it done, too, to get that bestest layer food plot. And I tell you what, if you use the promo code UNJ25, you'll get $25 off your order at packermax.com. Give Lincoln Roan a call. JPO Game Calls. We've had them on the show. We've seen them at the shows. You get UNJ 10, you'll get 10% off your order. So go over there, JPO Game Calls, check out the Omni Series, and get a call or two. Wild seasoning. What better way to season your venison except with wild seasoning? UNJ 2021 gets you 10% off your order at wildseasoning.com. Last but not least, Deer Camp Coffee. We're drinking it right now. We are having the blueberry bread.
The blueberry.
Thank you. And if you get UNJ 10 at 10% off your order at Deer Camp Coffee, like I said, go over to the website, check it out. They've got some holiday blends coming up. Mike's got some. And don't forget, pick up a package of Up North Journal coffee. It's our own label that we have. It's an Up North Journal medium roast. Buy a bag for Mike. That's all I got to say.
There you go.
And I would not be amiss if we did not go up north and check in to...
Pull that thing forward there.
I'm going to. Give me a second. I got to click some buttons. There you go. Up in Newberry, 48 degrees. Cedars, best pizza in town. We got to check it out and try it. And they also carry Deer Camp Coffee. It looks like it is down here. Wet.
Yep, a little rain up that way, up in the UP.
Right?
We went up north, we had a little bit of snow.
I know, right?
Yeah, so, a couple people saying that we got a little bit of audio dropping out. I wonder if audio, I know they had some internet issues around the area here, so we might be playing with some internet problems tonight, because our sound checks and everything are good back here on the back end. So, all right, well, let's get into it tonight. Why don't you go ahead and do the introduction?
So, as everybody knew, we didn't have a show last week because we were headed to the UP, and with Mike and I was my daughter-in-law, none other than Gabby Garza, who's joining us on the show tonight.
Hey, Gabby.
Hey guys,
What's going on?
not much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, especially after putting some venison in the freezer, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Well, I tell you what, it was a great week, and you tagged out, and it took you 2 days to do it. It took, Mike and I shot our does the first day, so we gave you the stage. But going back a little bit, one thing we did the Sunday previous, and I can't stress this enough, is getting out and practicing with your bows, or crossbows. Mm-hmm. And I think this really helped Gabby, is the fact that when we practiced, we were both shooting at 50 yards. Right, Gabby?
Yeah, and that's the first, I think that's like one of the few times I've ever shot a crossbow. So, yeah, I was happy to get out there and actually practice with it, and it was worth it.
So, yeah, so with that being said, you were comfortable to get out to that 50 yards, and you were comfortable because you never shot a crossbow till that day, and, it was actually your second time because you came over a couple weeks earlier, and we set it up because we had to sight it back in, and everything. So what do you feel like? You use a regular bow and you use a crossbow. Well, how do you feel the differences are between using the two in general?
Wow, after shooting both, I tell you what, using a crossbow was a lot easier. But it doesn't mean I don't like my compound bow, any less. It's just, it was so different. It was comfortable to hold. I appreciate that. I wasn't all like shaking, holding that, bow, waiting and waiting and waiting. So that was nice, but
Right, exactly. And
ups and downs.
Right, and you felt so comfortable shooting that 50 yards, and you put them. I think you put them like an inch apart. The last round we went, we put them in to the bullseye at 50 yards with an inch. So. And then I took one shot, and I took your knockoff. So I think we're done. But right. So then we decide we're going to head up north, and we're going to take Mike, who, lo and behold, had never been to the UP.
No, to hunt. I say I've been to the UP many times, man.
I didn't know that till before.
Don't be trying to throw this southern boy under the bus now. Come on.
Hey, at least you walk on ice.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So we'll go backwards, or do we want to go forward? You want to go first? We'll talk about you first. Because you got yours first, I got mine second, and then Gabby's stole the show.
Yeah, it happened quick on my end. I mean, it didn't take no time at all.
What was your feeling driving up there, going up there? Because we left at night.
Yeah.
And I said we weren't going to hunt the morning.
I was a little disappointed in that. I was like, wait, we're not going to hunt in the morning? Why not? I was like, oh, yeah, I got to get my license.
Well, that too.
So we had to go to town, had to have breakfast, had to get a license. And, this whole trip for me, people that know what I kind of went through last year. Remember that I did not hunt last year. And this was like the first time I've been back in the woods in really 2 years. A year and a half. We went turkey hunting. I think that was the last thing I did.
Right.
So, it was one of them deals. I had a little bit of angst about getting in the woods. I was a little nervous and didn't quite know did I still have it in me. Because my dad, when he hit an age, all of a sudden he didn't really want to hunt as much anymore. And I was like, am I losing it? Is it just because of the past year and a half? What was the whole deal? And then when I got up that morning at camp, I was like, yeah, it's game on again. So I throw a picture up here. This is the homestead of Mr. Default up north. And as you can see, there's some nice white stuff on the ground.
Right. So we left here at 6 o'clock, and we got up there at about 12 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And we could tell the roads were thankfully dry, but you could tell in the woods there was some snow.
Yeah.
Which made me happy. I was afraid, literally, because we were pulling the trailer, that I didn't want ice on the roads.
Well, the bigger thing, I want to see a little bit of snow on the ground just so we could see some deer and see the movement from a far away. But I will say, this is one of the coolest features I saw at your place. This rock is huge, and it had like 6-7 trees growing out of it.
Yep, exactly.
And it's hard to tell perspective there, but that thing is as tall as I am. And I'm taller than Danny, so you guys figure that out.
Why? Why?
But, going in that afternoon, yeah, you can say we were a little giddy, a little happy here, getting ready to get in the woods. But we put this new pop-up blind on top of this stand, and there's my view, man. And this reminded me of a scene out of Escanaba in the Moonlight, for anybody who's watched that. And the reason I say it, it's that big open timber, and you can see a long way, and it really reminded me of that movie. The thing that shocked me was at how flat the whole UP is, where we went,
When you stay on the southern side of the UP, it's pretty flat, and then when you start getting up towards the Porcupine Mountains, or you head a little bit north.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so you were sitting on what we call the West 40, which is primarily hardwoods, and you were in kind of a pine thicket.
It was nice. Like I said, there's a good shot from down the ground. You can see for quite a ways. It gave me a good perspective. So, I got up in there, got all set up.
How'd you like the C3 mitt on your bow?
Kept my hand nice and warm.
Did
I will say, yeah, you can see I've got it on the rig right there. Didn't have a glove on. Made direct contact with the riser. And I was worried. Honestly, I'm really picky about my setup. And I was really worried about whether or not it was going to make contact with the string. And I was pleasantly surprised that we put all those fears to rest, put the mitt on. We shot out in the backyard there at the cabin. I don't know, I shot probably half a dozen arrows, and everything was just dead on.
Yep.
Didn't have to worry about it. At that point, those fears were gone. And I wanted to get that out of my head before I even climbed in the stand. So.
And same thing with you, Gabby, right? You pulled out the crossbow and you shot a couple times just to make sure it didn't, because we had the crossbows in the back of the pickup, that they didn't get jostled.
Just had to make sure.
That's right. And then just do your due diligence of making sure that you do the right thing. So, but no, when I climbed in the stand, it was I don't know. Like I said, I sat there for a while, saw a bird, saw a squirrel, named him Twiggy. And, and I'm just kind of taking it all in. I'm like, you know what? Tonight it started warming up in the evening, and the snow started melting, and I could hear it dripping. I got a book out. Actually, the book is here in the house.
Oh, yeah, you got the camp book.
That hunting camp, yeah. from a good buddy of ours, and I got to give him a shout out, but I don't have the book here with me. Oh no, it's in my Jeep. I put it in my Jeep because I'm taking it north to finish it this week.
Okay.
So I'm reading the book, sitting back, kick back, watching, reading, and all of a sudden I hear something, kind of look up, and 100, 125 yards away, here comes Doe. Put the book away, put everything down. Now it's game time, and it's like everything just started clicking. It all came back. It all felt familiar, and the old heart starts thumping, and I'm like, old man, you've done this before, settle down.
Right.
And then it was like I got in the zone, and deer comes in, and all of a sudden here comes another doe, and they kind of started, she got too close, and she kicked at her to push her away, and I'm like, you know what, she's going to turn, after she ran her off, she's going to turn and come right back across. I just had a feeling that she's going to make that move. And I said, when she does, I'm going to draw. So as she made that turn, I drew, locked up, followed her right across. She's walking. Takes a little bit of a pause, and the bow just exploded. It went off. I mean, it to me, I take it all the way back to these last couple of years that we've shot indoor leagues. When you're so concentrated on the shot placement, and you're watching the pin dance, and you know where it's got to be, and all of a sudden it just goes off.
Yep, exactly. And while Mike's sitting in his blind and all this is going on, I'm actually sitting with Gabby. I decided for the afternoon hunt I was going to sit with Gabby over on the East 40 where we have Gabby's blind, and we were kind of just. I knew Mike was going to get one. I just had that feeling Mike was going to shoot first because in my mind that's how I wanted to play it out, anyways. So
he called the deer and said, "Hey, show up at Mike's."
Right? On cue, an hour later, they showed up.
It was exactly an hour into the woods.
So she walks in, you lock down, bow exploded.
She ran off. I watched her run, and she stopped. I mean, like I said, that timber, you can see through it. And for this instance, it was really good that I could see because she ran 60 yards, stood there, did the wobble, bang, done. I'm like, well, that was easy. So I grabbed the phone. I'm like, please let me get a text out. So sent Nancy a text, got a doe down, and I sent another text, Danny, doe down, and he texts right back, I'll go get the quad, and I'll be over. So I pack up, get down on the ground, take about 10 steps. Who's behind me? Danny. So much for getting the quad. He has to come over and see what
Well, we had to make sure that the deer was down and everything, and
so, and the one thing I really love, I had to take some photos of this, I love it in the fall when the leaves turn red.
Right, exactly.
Especially with blood. And we got a good blood trail going, and, the old Evo EVL definitely hit the home run for me. And if you want to see a good blood trail, this is what a good blood trail is.
So this is the first time you used mechanicals.
Oh, I forgot about that, yeah.
So he decided to use the T3s from G5.
Mm-hmm.
Gabby and I were using the Dead Meats by G5 this year. So you being never the mechanical kind of guy, what's your expectations going into, obviously the people that can see the picture, and that's another reason, folks, if you're listening on the podcast, you got to watch the Facebook or the YouTube, because you got to see these pictures.
It's like a 5-gallon bucket of blood.
Right?
Pour it on the ground. I was really shocked at the blood trail. I've heard stories, I've seen pictures, but when you actually see it firsthand, and then you see the entry hole, and the exit hole, and you're just like, dang!
Right?
And I was shooting, those broadheads are what, 3-4 years old, 5 years old? I mean, it's older technology from G5 that I just had them stuck back and never used them. But I decided, you know what, I'm going to give them a try. I mean, I'm up in the UP, I'm doing something different. Let's
all change it up.
Yeah, well, the bow this year, we went with completely different setups, trying some new stuff. Limb-driven drop-away rest, that new slider sight. I mean, I changed everything up on that rig,
Yep.
For what I was doing. I'm like, well, let's just top it all off and let's just put on a mechanical head. And once I got into the stand, I never thought about it, not once. Until I got down and I saw that blood. So, and, you're like, all right, put the picture up. Okay, here it is. You got to see the picture with me and the deer. So, a big old fat northern Michigan Upper Peninsula doe.
Right?
and she was a hefty doe. She was a big doe.
Yeah, we tagged her and took some pictures, and then I went and got the side by side.
Then you went and got the side by side. Yep. So, you know, it was just, it happened really quick, and that, I guess, is the one thing looking back, should I have taken time and maybe not shot so quick and maybe waited and see if there's a bigger one. I'm not disappointed at all about that. I'd do it again if I had to. You know, I'd shoot the same deer over again.
But we talked
100
about
times.
that. We talked about that. When the opportunity presents itself, take it, because you might not get that opportunity again.
Exactly. You never know. And you know, going in, I knew that my job was to shoot a doe, to shoot a mature doe, and help the deer management up there in the area. That's what my goal was and my purpose was for going up. So that's what I did.
Right, exactly. So we got it. We went in. I left Gabby in the tree. Did you see any deer the rest of that night?
I'm trying to think.
That
I
was
think I had,
Thursday
I
night.
had the younger doe walk in. Yeah, I had the younger doe walk in, and I didn't want to take the younger doe.
That's right. And so, while Mike and I were off 4x4 and this deer out of the woods, we took it back to camp, and there's a stand we're getting ready to put out in the woods, which won't go out into the woods now until next year. And it just is at perfect height, and we're like, well, let's put it up there and use it as a butcher table. And you know, it was one of those things. It was pretty wild. So
It shall forever now be known as the butcher block.
it will be now known as the butcher block. So, right? Poor Brian, huh? Wait till he sees it tomorrow night. So,
Before we get to yours, I tell you what, let's take a break.
Yep.
We'll come back and while I'm gutting my deer, Danny goes on a hunt. So
Yep.
we're going to step outside, take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
all right, folks. Any questions for Gabby, Mike, or I, throw them at us. We're talking deer hunting, and it's fun. It's fun when you're getting stuff, not going to lie.
Yes, it is.
But you don't have your, what do they call that stand? The vise. Death grip, right? Gabby?
Oh, yeah.
It's called the death grip, right?
Yeah, death grip.
Okay.
Do you have it there handy? Or no?
Actually, I mean, it's right out in the garage right
Oh,
there.
go grab it.
Yeah, okay.
We'll wait for you here real
Yeah.
quick. I'm going to be just a second. As I aimlessly click around here on the screen. You think I hadn't done this in a while?
I know, right?
Really, I haven't.
2 weeks.
It has been 2 weeks.
So
Okay, so
yeah, so you know, being up, what distance was each of your shots? So
20 yards.
So all of our shots were within 20 yards, and Mike's ran the furthest at 60.
Yep.
60, 45, and 30.
And actually, that's the shortest track I've had on a deer with a bow.
Okay.
And I will say, well, number one, shot placement. Number two is because of the broadhead, I do believe. I'm going to say that's shot placement and the broadhead are the two key things. And I'll show you a picture of shot placement here later.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, all right.
Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back. Second segment of the show. So I've got mine. Got it on the butcher block. I'm busy doing my stuff. And Danny is sitting there, and I said, dude, it's 4:30. You've still got like an hour and a half, 2 hours to hunt.
Not an hour. Well, it was getting close to time change. We time changed on Saturday night.
That's right, yeah.
So I figured we had about an hour and a half. And, so how old do you figure they were?
I'm figuring my doe was probably 3.5, 4.5, 5.5-ish. That's the one thing I did not do, and I regret not doing, was checking the dentin on the teeth to age the deer on the jawbone. I used to get into practice of pulling the jawbone, but we just didn't do it. I didn't even think about. I didn't have a jawbone puller. We still could have done it, but it had been a little tougher. But I just didn't do it. But it was an older doe.
I think all three of our does were older than 2.5.
Yeah, I would say so.
We didn't take anything young, and you could tell it. And truthfully, that was kind of our mission. Now the distances, like the question that was asked in the break, all our shots were within 20. Well, no, take that back. 2 of our shots were within 20 yards. 1 was 45. That story is coming up. That's Gabby's story. But anyways, so Mike is gutting the deer, and I'm kind of like looking around, going, I'm gonna get a hunt on.
Mm-hmm.
So I load up my crossbow, and I'm heading to a stand that's really close to the cabin. And I'm walking out there, and up there and anywhere when you hunt, you always just be visual when you're walking in, because I don't know how many times I've been watched while walking in.
You told me many stories of deer just standing watching you.
Right? And sure enough, that's what happened. I walked in, and I could see 2 does off in the distance kind of watching me, and so I kind of I didn't pay attention to them. So I was heading towards the blind, and I got to the blind, and they were still there. So I just kept walking, and I tried to they were facing me. So what I did is I kept walking to the point I got a broadside shot. And so their natural, which way they were walking, was to go to my left, from my right to my left. So I got past my blind, I waited, she cleared broadside to me, I looked her over, I looked at the one behind her, and I said, well, you're probably the older one. And so at about 15 yards, I put a dead meat through her. And she ran about 30 yards, kicked back, and she was done. So then I walked back out, and I said, hey, Mike.
He walks back. I had just pierced the chest cavity on mine and was working my way down the belly, getting ready to open it up and pull out the entrails. And I look up, and here comes Danny with the crossbow over his shoulder. I'm like, what'd you forget? He goes, nothing. I just shot a deer. I was like, what?
Right?
So then I got to hear that story. So, but yeah, so then he gets to proceed to scratch his tag out.
Right. So basically within an hour, Mike and I shot our does. It was getting darker. We brought it back to the cabin so Mike could finish gutting his, and then I would be up on the butcher block. And actually, I got the C3 mitt on my crossbow there, and actually that worked out really good, because that gave me, I knew exactly where to put my hand, and I knew it was underneath the rail.
Right.
So
to me, that's a big safety feature of those.
Exactly.
On a crossbow, especially if you got younger kids that you're teaching to hunt, and you're worried about those hands getting up in the path of the string.
Yep, exactly. And that's one of the things with crossbows. You see the horror stories and everything. It just helped you get to that point, and I mean that mitt is perfect for that. So I was done. Brought it back to camp. Mike and I were gutting it, and it was starting to get dark. And Gabby was still out in the woods up on one of the 40s, and it's getting dark. And Mike's like, "Well, should we go get her?" I'm like, "No, she'll come out. She knows how to get back to the cabin." And it was getting dark now, dark. And all of a sudden, lo and behold,
Well, hang on. Yeah, I had went back in the cabin before I asked you that question. I made sure that I had my coffee.
there you go.
So I'm kicked back, and Danny comes into the door. He goes, Mike, get up. You gotta come out. The wolf's howling. And I'm like, huh? Yes. So I go outside to hear the wolf. And I'm like, that's cool, but creepy, but cool.
Right, it is creepy.
It is dark, and I'm like, well, that's when I said, is Gabby coming in? Do we need to go get her?
And like 3 seconds later,
She comes right down the path.
right down the trail. So she heard the wolves too. What was
I
that?
was trucking. I was hauling down the trail.
Right? So
Were you scared?
No one moves slowly when you hear wolves behind you, just nobody.
Right. Oh,
it's a better feeling like in the morning when you hear them and the sun's coming up, as opposed to when you hear them
Getting
the sun's
darker.
going down, right?
yeah.
So, lo and behold, Thursday night, Mike and I are tagged out for does. I still had my tags to go back out, so that left us starting going into Friday. It's Gabby's, and there's a picture of Mike and I zipping around the property, and we're just having a good old time because we got our meat in the freezer. We're actually hanging in the garage. It was good.
Well, there's you got a little pet up there too. I got to find this shot of the pet.
Do you get a picture of the pet?
Yeah.
Oh, you got, okay, yeah.
So I think this was Friday Friday afternoon. Was that What day? I got my deer on Thursday.
You got your deer on Thursday night.
Yep.
Friday, you were back at the cabin.
I took a walk.
You took a walk.
That's when you and Gabby went out. You guys went out. And I come back, and lo and behold, you got a little fella sitting on the back of your truck.
Yeah, he likes to come and visit, and obviously he found the corn in the back of the pickup truck, and he was helping himself. It was a drive-through, obviously.
And for those of you who ask, yes, you can put out shell corn or bait in the UP.
Yes, and so as Mike was watching nature, Gabby and I went back out hunting on Friday, and it took till Friday evening. Finally, we got Gabby into Gabby was having a little angst as to where to sit, right, Gabby?
Oh yeah, I couldn't make a decision to save my life.
So, what was your thinking about that? Because you didn't know where to sit, and I was trying to let you decide where to sit. So, what were you thinking more of the bucks that you thought you knew about over there, or were you thinking wanting to shoot a doe?
Well, I knew going up what we had on camera. Like, of course, we had those 8 points on camera. Like, okay, that's cool. But once it was really all talked about. Like, we want to put meat in the fridge. I want to put meat in the freezer. So I knew my job when I went up there was that you got to get a doe. And I knew there were does, right? So I knew where I wanted to sit in the beginning, and then when I didn't see a lot of does there, I was like, well, that's odd. But then the 8 point showed his face, but then didn't come in. I was like, oh, so that really got me confused. I won't lie. I didn't know what to do. So then I was like, well, I'll change it up. But I didn't know, I had a 50-50 chance of going to the spot where Dan got his deer, or I could have went, to where Mike got his.
So she looks at both of us. Well, what would you guys do? And I go, follow your gut.
Right?
Yeah, it was so hard.
So you started out where Dan had shot his deer right out behind the cabin, about 150, 200 yards away.
Yeah, started there, and I was like, okay, I feel good, and just I kind of ignoring that little weird feeling you kind of have in your stomach, like, no, it's gonna be okay. And I sat there for, oh my gosh, it felt like forever, and nothing was moving, absolutely nothing. I was watching birds fight and squirrels fight, and I was like, okay, it's gonna be okay. And then I kept sitting there, I just kept thinking, I was like, so I texted Dan from the stand, and I was like, have you gone out yet? Hoping he hadn't. And I was like, he's like, no, I'm still at the cabin. And I was like, well, I'm really not seeing anything, and I'm wondering, maybe I made the wrong choice, or is there a better, should we do this? He's like, what do you think? Always letting me make my own decisions here. And I ended up walking back in, and we got the rest of our stuff together, and we headed back out to the West 40 where Mike shot his doe. Whew. So hard.
So we sat there, and I had a turkey tag, and some turkeys came in. Well, I shot one, but it wasn't a kill shot, so that kind of ruined it for a little bit. But lo and behold, a few minutes later, we heard that magical sound of feet, hooves, right, Gab?
Yeah, because trust me, the turkeys did come back in, and I got so excited, and all of a sudden the turkeys showed their faces again, and I was like, are you kidding me?
Well, that's right, they did come back. They left and they came back. That's right, yeah. Was wind a factor in your decision on where to sit?
Not.
It wasn't windy at all. There was no wind at all.
Oh my gosh,
It was completely still.
there was a couple times when Gabby shot hers. Actually, I think when all three of us shot, it was like getting towards that dark, late in the day, dead calm. There wasn't much wind, and so turkeys came back in, and then off from our right, we started hearing the distinct sounds, and it wasn't a giant squirrel.
It was not a giant squirrel, thank goodness.
Well, take us through it.
Oh man, so what ended up walking in was a doe, but what was following her was a little yearling. He was a little button buck, and I looked right at Dan. I was like, I cannot, and I will not take a doe with this little yearling, like, just practically attached to the hip. I mean, I was like, there's no way. I'm like, of course, this is the one that's going to walk in front of me. And I was like, okay. And I just looked at him. I said, there's no way. I can't do it. I refuse. And as soon as I get done saying that, off coming from behind us on the right, here comes more steps. And I'm like, thank God. So, lo and behold, another doe walks in. And I'm looking, I look at this doe and I get a good look at her. And I immediately just, like, turn and look at Dan. And I'm like, this one's so much bigger. And he's like, yes, yep. And so she stood herself a good 20 yards. 20 yards right in front of me. And Dan, she didn't broadside me.
No, she was quartering away from, after she got settled in and you asked me if she was the bigger one, and I said, yep, for sure. And then what she did is she kind of shifted around so she was facing away from you, quartering away. Mm-hmm. And then, so Gabby went out and purchased something. I actually purchased it before she did, and then she went out and got one, and one magically showed up on her door. But you got, it's called a death grip vise for putting in a gun, and we used it for the crossbow. And I think, didn't it? And you got it there?
Yeah, I do. So this is kind of what it looks like.
So what you do is you open up the vise, and then you just set your gun crossbow in there, and then you tighten it up.
So it's a tripod.
It's a tripod.
It is a tripod.
Right? And it's called a death grip, and that can go from, there's 3 angles you can use the legs on, and it just, you can use it standing all the way to prone. So,
you could let it sit there, and the crossbow could actually balance on that, so it's not like we had to, sit right up on it all the time. It could sit there, and right when a deer walked in, it was already set. I was good to go. All I had to do was grab it, look down the scope, adjust it a little bit. Boom, that's all she wrote.
So with that being said, as soon as she asked me was it bigger, I said, yep, that's what. And then she was getting ready, and I told her, I said, aim for the opposite shoulder. Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, I didn't have the video rolling or anything like that, but we were using lighted knocks, and there was no better feeling than watching the lighted knock disappear behind the shoulder blade going forward.
And then reappear on the other side.
We didn't see it at first.
Yeah.
And it took off, tail down, and low. But it ran to our right, our left, which we were blocked by pines.
Okay. So you didn't see it drop?
No. The other 2 deer stood there and looked at her. And I was watching the other 2 deer because they were watching her. I'm like, okay. So we got down, and we waited 5 minutes, and we found her arrow. Mm-hmm. And it was a complete pass-through. So what did you think when you saw your arrow that it was a complete pass-through?
That was the first. That would be a first. So I was like, holy smokes, the amount of blood. I was like, oh, wow. My eyes just got huge. I was like, this is it.
What'd you think about when you saw the entry hole?
Ow, my gosh. My eyes are probably just about as big as it. But I've never seen an entry hole like that. So
that was pretty good. So we found the arrow. And I grabbed my binoculars, and I told her to reload the crossbow, and let's go track this thing. Mm-hmm. So we find the arrow, we start to pick up some good blood. I'm like, cool, all right. It's a pass-through anyway, so we should find blood pretty quickly. And she's like, is that there over there? I put the binocs on it, and I'm like, no, we got to keep tracking this thing. You got to follow the blood, except the rock that I was looking at was kind of red. But I won't say nothing. So right? It's a learning moment. I use everything I can for learning.
I wanted to teach you how to track.
Right. So
it's not hard. It wasn't hard to track that one.
Right. So you picked up the track, and then I told you to keep looking ahead, and yours ran 45.
Yep.
And the pictures you see on the screen is the entrance and exit. And
there's the exit hole.
That is a dead meat by G5. And I tell you what, that's dead meat.
That's dead meat.
So that was a beautiful shot, and then she got to punch her tag. And as of Friday night, we had all 3 of our does hanging in the garage. So we got that back to camp. Used the lights off the Ranger.
I will say the lights on your Ranger make for great photographs in the evening.
That's okay.
I mean, it does. I mean, it lit up. I mean, because it's almost dark here.
Yep.
You know, the sun had done set. This was a little earlier in the evening than yours. Yours was dark when we took those photos.
Yeah, she shot hers at 4:30. Same time you shot yours, I think. 4 or 4:30.
But yeah, But this is one thing that I did want to show right here. So it came time for her to get her hands bloody.
Right?
And I was like, oh, he broke out the easy cuts. When I gutted mine, I did not realize you had those. Otherwise, I would not have cut through the chest cavity with my knife.
I don't even know what it was
Just throw 'em
like.
open.
It just hit me. It's like,
Yeah.
well, why don't we just use the easy cut?
Yeah. So you and I both, had to cut
Right.
through the sternum all the way up to open them up to get that chest cavity out. But yeah, if anybody does not have easy cut loppers, I'm telling you what, they're worth their weight in gold. It's a way to open up a chest cavity and be able to get the entrails out, and also use it to split the pelvic bone when you're cleaning out the back end. You won't be sorry. These things pay for themselves.
And as you see there, we're using the butcher table.
Yep, that's it. That's the butcher
Right?
block.
And so you're right, Mark Coleman. Easy cuts for the win. Those new blinds, Mark, are the rhinos.
I did not take a photo from the outside of that.
Is it
blind.
Rhino, Gabby?
I should.
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah, they are rhinos. I do remember that now.
So they're the Rhino 150s, I think. And so I ran into a problem before with the blinds that had individual windows. So I went out and got a couple of these blinds like this that had the window that went all the way across, and it sets up better for crossbow and bow.
They function similar to a double bowl.
Yeah, exactly. They're just like the little brother of the bow, the double bow or the see-throughs. But so that's what our views were, and you could see the entire woods. You didn't have a blind spot where you didn't want one. Mm-hmm. That was a key to those things. So, but as of Friday night, there they were. We had them hanging in the garage. We were all set, ready to go. We were done. It was like, I know Gabby. This was the only weekend Gabby was going to hunt, and she had seen an 8-point earlier before she shot her doe, and when it came time, she's like, well, can we do a morning hunt? And I said, absolutely, let's get out there and I'll do a morning hunt with you. And what Mike's going to show now is what a great this is your heart shot, right?
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about, shot placement and the broadhead I was using. It's just a no-brainer, no doubt about it. I mean, dead center heart shot.
So all three of us made heart shots. Mike's was dead center. Gabby's was, there's Mike getting hungry for heart.
Well, we had 3 hearts, and I'm like, why? I learned how to cook these.
Right.
You had never had heart. She had never had heart, and I was like, well, let's not let these go to waste. We've got 3 of them.
Absolutely.
So I said, let me cook these up. You guys try it. If you don't like it, don't eat it.
Well, that was the thing. It's perfectly fine because I'd never tried it.
So here's the little butcher block. So I'm slicing it up here, and when you get them cut up, this is kind of what they look like in the bowl. They, just little circles. Cut them cross grain, and then I, would take and cut the valves and everything inside out that you didn't want to eat. And when you get done with that,
They look like little donuts of meat.
yeah, and it's basically muscle. The key to it is really washing it well, getting the blood out of it, that blood taste and blood smell. And I think that's what turns a lot of people off. It would turn me off for years when people would cook heart. And you put a little bit of oil in the pan, you cut them about 1/4 inch thick, fry them on one side for 2 minutes, flip it over, 2 minutes on the other side, and then I always turn it back over one more time for about a minute on the first side, and they're done. We did put a little bit of minced garlic on these.
Yeah, so basically we started off with just vegetable oil, salt and pepper, and then we could add, we found some onion powder and some garlic powder.
So
And that's what we did. And you know what? You were cooking up as I got out of the shower, and it was just It smelled delish.
So what did you think about it?
I loved it. You, Gabby?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was mentally a little hard to get by, but I mean the taste, you couldn't tell it was hard.
And that's what I was trying to get across when we were talking about it. It's like if you can get that mental thing out of your head about, oh, it's a heart.
Right?
No, it's a muscle. It's a muscle, just like the hind quarter or the tenderloin it's a muscle.
Exactly. And I tell you what, and Gabby and I discussed this, if we were to cook this up for somebody in general and put it into a stroganoff or anything like that, you couldn't tell.
No. And you can see that, I mean, that's what, medium?
Medium to medium rare, depending on the size of the piece, and it tasted good. It was just fantastic all the way around.
So we've rambled down here for about 20 minutes in this segment. So I'll tell you what, let's cut this segment now. Let's go to a break. We come back, we got to talk about one more deer.
Right.
So we're going to step outside. We're going to take our next break, and we'll be right back after this.
You're right, Tammy Delk. Those stands, they're easy to get in. They're great for long sits, and plus we're getting older, so it makes it nice.
Right?
Not you guys.
Comfort is key.
Right?
If you're not comfortable in a stand,
you're not going to sit long.
You won't stay there. You're going to fidget, and then you're going to either blow the hunt, or you're not going to stay out as long.
Exactly.
Which you're reducing your chances of getting something. So, and that's one thing about the C3 mitts we were talking about earlier. Is in them cold conditions, when I can put my hand on a metal riser, and keep my hands from getting cold, because I mean it was, I don't know, what was it, mid-40s?
It was anywhere from 30 to mid-40s.
Yeah, so depending on time of day, and I had no problem with my hands at all, and I really liked that positive contact I had on. Tammy says, "Who's getting older? Not us." Yeah, you keep telling yourself that. Right. I feel it every morning when I get up. So, all right. Are y'all ready here?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, and 1. Third segment of the show. 3 deer down. Bellies are full. We got deer heart.
And so we decided, because we were all tagged out, we're going to leave Saturday night. Mm-hmm. But Gabby, we knew there was bucks in the air because Gabby saw an 8-point. Mm-hmm. The rut was not going. Those were actually following the 8-point. But I want to give a shout out to Spy Point. I'm using 2 of their cellular cameras right now, and I've had no problems with them. Battery life has been awesome. This is how we knew what we had on the property.
Okay.
So
is that what you got on there right now?
Yeah, that's what I had on there. And
he just got a text.
And no, I didn't. So we got out there Saturday morning, and it wasn't as cold as Friday morning. Friday morning was crunchy. I remember that. So Gabby went back to her stand off the field on the East 40. And Gabby, you walked in, and action started right then, didn't it?
Oh yeah, it did. I walked in, and I was surprised I didn't hear anything, because normally we kind of sometimes scare them off the pile when we walk in, and I didn't hear anything, so I was like, all right, just get settled. And then I don't know what drew me to just look out the front of the blind. Well, I did, and I had my headlamp on. I look out, and I see these 2 glowing eyes looking at me, and I was like, everything's fine. It's not the 8-point. Everything's cool. So finish getting ready. I get set up, and I still can't see a darn thing, but I can hear somebody, someone chewing out there. So I was like, okay. I wonder. Of course, my mind's going, it has to be the 8-point. It just has to be. Wow, it would.
Who else could it be?
Right, why? No one else would come out this time. So I was like, okay, well, nothing to do but wait. Be here, sit quietly, and just wait. Oh, it's the longest wait. Well, finally I heard that. She, whatever it was, walked away. Dan, didn't you say you had pictures?
Yeah, so according to the time that she was telling me this was, I got a picture on the cellular cam of an 8-point walking in front of the camera, away from where the blind would be. So it was like, okay, so he was there, and just moved off. So you were sitting there, and then it finally got daylight, right?
Yeah, so that was fine. It was cool. It was just light enough, and to where you could kind of just see a little bit. Not enough to, not light enough to shoot anything yet. But all of a sudden, once again, from my right and from behind me, I hear this noise, and I'm like, what the heck is that? I'm just like, it wasn't, Dan, what did we call that? Because it wasn't a grunt, but it was like, what was it, a grunt? Whatever that noise
Well, you heard, at that time, you heard the grunt. You heard the grunt of the
That
buck.
was the grunt.
Yes, that was the grunt you were hearing as he was coming in, actually. I got pictures of that on camera as well, just before you shot him.
Yeah, so he had 2 does with him, and they came running in, and they went right to the bait pile. I was like, okay, cool, and then I heard him, and he kind of just kept like a perimeter on them. Like he never actually, came in to, he never came in, not even 30 yards. And I just like, it was finally light enough that I could get my binoculars out, and I was looking, and I was like, oh no, it would have a rack. So I was like, okay, everything's fine. Whew, everything's fine. And so I'm looking, I'm watching, I'm like, God, it's still not, I don't feel, it's not light enough to actually like take a shot. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the longest wait of my life. It's like, this is terrible. But, so I'm waiting, and I'm just watching him. Like how he's, how the does are interacting, and I'm watching him and his behavior, and which was cool. I've actually never seen a buck start a scrape. So that was pretty cool. He started just a small scrape, probably good 40, 50 yards away, and just watching him just do his thing. And I kept telling myself, I'm like, all right, it's finally like, it's light enough. I can't believe he stuck around this long, and it's finally light enough. I can look through my scope. I can see everything. And I was like, oh man, whew, here we go. So I have him in scope, and I'm waiting. I'm waiting for him to give me something to shoot, and I was like, and I kept telling myself, I'm like, I try to remind myself, I was like, we mapped it out. Like when Dan and I sat that first evening hunt, I was like, all right, range find the pile, range find the next thing. And I'm so glad we did that, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh no, I don't know how far away he is. I'm not, trusting my judgment with that. And then I was like, oh wait, we did this. And I was like, each one was about 10 yards from the next. So I was like, perfect. He's a 50-yard right now. I was like, okay, good to know. And I felt good about that. But he still wouldn't turn. And I'm like, come on, dude. Like, you can't be this smart right now. It's too early for that. And he starts moving, and the does are still on the pile, and he's just keeping this perimeter on them. And I'm like, okay, I see you. And he finally, like, he broadsided, but he's broadsided and then kept walking and stopped right behind a tree. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm sitting here trying to, like, slowly turn, because that's another thing that vise, it does. It helps me, like, it turns really smooth. So I was like, oh, thank God. Found that out just now. So kept going, followed him, and finally he stopped. And I was like, okay, this is it. Like, and I'm like, so I determined that he had to come in a little bit. And so I was like, okay, so give or take, I put it at 45 yards. So I was like, okay, I got this. And he stayed there for just another more second, and I was like, this is it. So once I pulled that trigger, oh my gosh, the feeling, I can't even tell you the feeling when I saw that arrow connect with him, and watching him, do where he did a jump kick. He immediately jumped, and he kicked his back legs out, and then all of a sudden he went low, and his tail went down, and he just took off. And I was like, I didn't even know what to think. I sat there and I was like, don't move. Like, just don't move. Oh, man.
So you watch it run off, gave you a kick, ran off, tail down, it headed for the thick stuff.
Yes. And so I sat there, and I realized, I was like, okay, Gabby, like, Dan, you remember what Dan said? Do not go. Do not ever go right after the deer. I was like, okay, that's it. And then the does were still actually on, the does took off initially once I shot. And so then they came back, one came back in, probably 15, 20 minutes later, and she was eating, and all of a sudden I hear this noise. I've never heard a noise like this before, but I was like, I thought I was losing my mind because I was like, what the heck was that? Was that just like another animal, or, you know, what was that? And all of a sudden I'm like, well, the doe looked in the same direction that I heard it, and I was like, all right, I'm not crazy. Like, I heard something, not sure what it was, but it just sounded like, you know, this big, like, just a big exhale. It's like this big blow of wind, and I was just like, well, that's just weird. So I waited a little bit longer, and I was like, okay, what did I do last time? Like, I just wanted to get down, reload, and just go to the spot where I thought I shot him. So I get down there, and I haven't even called Dan yet, and I was just like, oh, just breathe, you're fine, everything's fine. And I ended up calling Kelly, and I was like, what do I do? I don't see any blood. I don't know what happened. Yeah, it was something else. So finally, she's like, call Dad. Just call him. And I was like, okay.
So I get a phone call out in the middle of the woods. So I figured I knew something happened. And so I said, I'll be over in a minute. And what I did with her is I had her replay the shot to me from her point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, it's a downward shot. You're not going to have blood right away because the cavity's got to fill up. She said she saw the arrow sticking out. So I was not thinking
It wasn't a pass-through.
It wasn't a pass-through. I said, all right. Going to be a minute before we get blood, but we should get blood. And so she said she hit it decent, just like, you know. I'm like, okay, so let's just let it go, lay down a little bit, and we'll go back and get Mike. So that's what we did. Had to interrupt his deer camp coffee morning.
Oh,
and
I just happen to have a picture of that.
do you?
Yeah, here. Yeah, this is another good one here. I gotta find this thing here real quick while you guys are talking. Go ahead.
And so we got back. We got rid of all our clothes, lightened up our working clothes, and then we headed back out to the spot. And this is what Mike was doing when we got into the cabin.
I was reading my book.
Right, you're reading your
I
book.
picked it back up again. So
we went back out and got Mike, and we went. And Mike actually found the first spot of blood, which wasn't exactly in the same spot Gabby was thinking. That's fine.
well, you know, when we got out there, the first thing I asked when we're standing, I go, which way did he run? And she goes, that way.
Oh yeah, the 180 degree of arm length.
You got about 45 degrees this way and this way, and I'm like, did you see what tree he ran past the last time you saw him? No, they all look the same. That's the part we're hoping that you take what happened this time, and next time you use that as your learning tool. It's like, okay, next time, keep an eye on him, watch where he runs, make a mental note of that tree right there. It's got this odd shape or whatever. You got to distinguish that last spot.
Yep.
But yeah, we found blood pretty quick.
And and then it was kind of a little spotty, and then we just found
The valve opened up.
where it opened up, and I'm like, that's what we needed to see, and it wasn't 20 yards more.
Ugh.
We seen him laying there.
So we both backed up and said, hey, I pointed to Dan, he's right there. I said, put her on the trail.
Yep. And so she takes the lead. She's got the crossbow, and she takes the lead, and she's getting closer, and all of a sudden, she looks back at us and goes, it's still breathing. I said, well, you're going to have to put another one into him.
Oh.
And
I'm surprised they didn't take and jump and run. I mean,
Right.
that's what totally surprised me.
Exactly, and that was kind of the thing, and it's kind of telling me he was hurt bad. So I said, put another one into him, get a good angle. Mike's like, get a good angle, put it into him, just be done with it. All right. So she gets up there, but what had happened, folks, is her bolt slid forward about an inch. So when she went to shoot, it clicked because of the dry fire.
The anti-dry fire safety mechanism.
Exactly, and then I said,
Thankfully, which worked.
that's exactly right. So that's a great safety feature on all crossbows now. But so I said, okay, you got to cock it back. Where's your rope cocker? At the cabin.
Back at the cabin.
All right. So we back out, jump in the Ranger, go get another bolt, get the rope cocker. We come back.
I had stayed there.
Mike had stayed there.
And I watched this buck. I was probably 30, 40 yards away. I just stood, kept an eye on him, didn't move, didn't make a noise. And I watched him try to get on his feet. And then as y'all started pulling in, I'd like wave, stop, don't pull in. you know. And then I said, like, you know, tiptoe, you know, come on in, but be quiet. And as you all walked up, I watched him try to get up 3 times. And the last time, you were about halfway to me. And I saw his head pick up and his head go right over his back and just lay down. And I said, he just give up the ghost.
Yep, exactly. But we didn't know that yet. So what we did is we sent Gabby in because it's her deer. And we said, well, get in there and try to put another one in him because we didn't know at that time.
And we sat and we watched. I mean, I was 99% sure because there was no moving of the chest. I watched him for a good 3 or 4 minutes, and he did not move.
Right, and he was also, his head was in a different position. His ears weren't moving at all. So Gabby went in, and
we have the audio turned down for a reason.
yeah, we have the audio turned down on this video, which we are showing now, of Gabby moving in to check on her buck to see if it is still alive or.
Take us through this, Gabby.
No! Oh my gosh. Like, okay, so, you know, we come back, we set the bow, everything's good to go, and, you know, Mike's like waving me in, like, come on. And I'm like, okay, so I'm like, all right, this isn't like, I hate to do this, but, you know, I knew we had to do what we had to do. And so, oh man, I'm just, And anywho, so I'm looking at it, and I'm like, okay, I know for sure that deer's dead. Like, no, he's not breathing. There's no movement. I'm like looking back. I'm like, guys, he's dead. They're like, no, you still have to check. I'm like, no, but like, he's dead. And they're like, no, go check. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not scared. You're scared. You know? And you know, but before that, Mike was telling me, he's like, okay, so don't go this way, don't get this close, don't let him, you know, don't let him trample you, don't let him kick you, know, so I'm thinking about all that in my head as I'm approaching this deer, and I'm like, okay.
Yep, approach him from the back.
And I'm like, oh God, you know, so it took a hot minute, It happened.
And then we walked in on it. Oh my gosh.
We had to turn down the sound because the F words were kind of flying at Mike and I because we were she had to go check the deer, folks. It's her deer. We're going to watch her do this. And
I don't know whether you could hear the laughing more or her more because, I mean, we were just cracking up.
Right? But and that's what memories are made of.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was a classic moment, and it ended up being a 6-point. It wasn't the 8-point. And you actually put a really good shot on it. It was a liver shot up to the front shoulder. It actually was a pass-through.
We never did find the bolt.
But we never find the bolt, so I got to go back and look.
Tell you what, that was another process, getting in that deer without knowing. Whew.
Oh yes, that was of having to try to field dress this deer, not knowing if the bolt or the broadhead was still in it, because not knowing if it broke off inside. We never found it, so we just have no idea what happened to it. But at that point, that's when you got to be real careful when you start to gut. And we didn't split the chest cavity on this one because she wanted to have a mount down, a shoulder mount on it. So I said, do not go ramming your hand in there pulling guts out, because if there's a broadhead in there, it's going to fillet your hand wide open.
So and those dead meats are
deadly.
Yeah, they're
No
sharp.
joke.
And so she got her 6-point and great buck. Probably going to be
That was
about
a big buck.
probably going to be about 2.5. And it was awesome. And you tagged yourself out by 10 o'clock. So, right? So now you got 2 deer in the freezer. You're going to have this guy mounted. And, it's not a bad weekend.
No.
One for the books, for sure.
Yeah, 2 deer in her freezer, a deer in yours, and you brought my deer over to me at night. It's in the freezer, and it'll be heading to Saginaw tomorrow evening after I get out of work. So
There you go.
but I tell you what, we got one more segment to go. We'll wrap everything up, but let us take our last break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the show. We're going to step outside, take our last break. We'll be right back after this. All righty.
All right, folks. Any questions? It was a heck of a weekend, folks. It was fun. It was a blast. It was memories were made of, comical, It was just, we had fun. And Tammy says, beautiful buck, Gabby, and
Thank you, Tammy.
it truly was a beautiful 6-point. And we still got bucks on camera, so it's like, hey, it's cool.
There you go.
And I'm so proud of her, it's just ridiculous.
Here we go. 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the last segment of the show. We're going to kind of wrap things up and give our perspective on some things. As you said in the break, Danny, I don't know. I seen you get a little teary-eyed, I think, up there. You were so happy.
I'll let you guys go first before I'll end it on mine.
All right.
You guys can talk first, because,
Well, for me, I learned I still got it.
Right? Absolutely you do.
I'm real happy. I'm not happy that it happened in an hour. I really wish I could have relished a little more of that time. But that being said, I got to stay back at camp, drink a few adult beverages, drink some coffee, read a book, got out, took a hike, and kind of got myself readjusted into the outdoors. And I don't know, kind of soul cleansing for me.
I think it was very good mentally for you.
It was. I just really decompressed. I got a lot of sleep, which was good. And the thing I'm the most proud of is the shot that I put on the deer. The first time that I've been back in the woods in a long time, and it was dead bullseye, And I've had to track a few deer. I have to say it. I've had to track a few.
Oh, yeah.
But this one was, I don't know, it's being the first Upper Peninsula deer, hanging out with you, hanging out with Gabby. It was a really cool time. And thank you for allowing me to come up to your place. I had a blast.
Absolutely. Anytime, you are more than welcome to come up. Like I said, you're like a brother to me. And anytime you want to come up, you just say the word and we'll have you up.
You heard that. You guys heard that.
So, Gabby, what was your perspective of the weekend?
Well, I gotta say, being life where it's at now, we just had the wedding, being in school, it really put in perspective the time I need to take for, to spend on myself and spend with family and friends, how important that is, and, really put that in perspective, and just being in a place that, you can recenter in the woods, like the woods. I've always said it, ever since the first time I've been up there with you guys, it's my happy place. And I was ecstatic to get back to my happy place, and it, kind of like Mike said, it just centers you. It really does. It gives you a chance to reset and refine who you are, and everything, lets you really dial in on what's important, and boy, did it. Let alone, and then, being able to bring meat home, and I just can't wait to be able to do it again, hopefully next year. Get Kelly up there this time. For sure, but yeah, it meant a lot to be able to get back up there with friends and family. That's for sure.
What does it mean? I know what it means for me. It means something different to everybody, but when you come home and you bring and you put food on the table that you've worked hard to get, you've put the time, the effort in, you field dressed it, took care of it, brought that meat home. What does that mean to you when you put that food on the table?
I mean, proud isn't to be proud of it, that's one word. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's just this huge accomplishment. There's no other accomplishment, because we can go to the grocery store,
right.
We can go anywhere and get get food, but to say I went out there, I wouldn't sat in the cold, sucked, but it was awesome. Loved every second of that.
It wasn't that cold.
Oh, listen, I got cold at least once or twice.
It was not that cold.
Listen, guys, and then just going out there, we didn't have to track much for the does, but then tracking that buck a little bit, oh God, like I said, when we were out tracking, I said it's so stressful, but it's everything about that is so worth it. And then that's the first time I really got a chance to get my hands nice and dirty in that deer, and I tell you what, proud doesn't come close, but proud I was, proud I am, to bring that home, to share that with my family and friends,
Yeah, words just don't describe it.
They really can't.
You know, and
Words don't describe it until you do it.
yeah, you
Or
know,
live it, or you know, and if we had somebody up there that even wasn't hunting, just to be in the camp and part of the whole situation.
yeah, you know, and that's what non-hunters don't understand. You know, when they ask you like, well, how can you do that? And it's like, until you try it, don't knock it. You know,
Right.
there's something. You know, our forefathers did it. You know, I mean, we come from hunter-gatherers. You know, if we come from a long line of hunting people, had they not been good hunters, we would not be here because they would not have ate. You know, so it's just like you said, Gabby. It's reconnecting, recentering, and just kind of putting yourself in check, and you kind of realize where you are in the pecking order a little bit as far as the outdoors. And when I was walking around, I'm like, you know. It's kind of dumb of me to be walking around right now because I didn't have a sidearm. And if a bear were to come out, I mean, it was warm enough, bears could have still been out. But, you know, you come between a mama and cub unexpectedly, and it's like, all of a sudden, you know, you realize where you are in the pecking order.
Oh my!
Yeah, so.
But yeah, no, so good. I'm glad you both had good weekends. For me, it was spectacular in a few sense. One, obviously having you up, Mike. I was so happy to be able to bring you up. It's been so long that I could just, you know, hey, when in doubt, shoot a doe. But having you up, like I said, you're like a brother to me, and we were talking about this as we've hunted a lot together, but we never got a deer. We've hunted a lot and never both got a deer, and we were done in an hour.
And then I told him, I said, I beg to differ, my friend. I said, the very first time we hunted together, I said, I called you and 5 big birds.
Right.
So we have killed.
We have killed, but we haven't killed together.
No.
So it was, so on that aspect, having you up there, like I said, you're more than welcome to come up anytime. We got room. We'll fit you in. Now, going back to the family side, having my daughter-in-law there was just, I wish my daughter would have been there. Obviously, she couldn't make it, but my daughter-in-law was there. Seeing her shoot the doe that she did was spectacular. Then on her own, shooting the 6-point, it just made me proud as a parent to see my daughter-in-law and just get both those deer, and having to go get the meat wagon and, you know, throw 4 deer in the back of it and get them out. It was just, I was so proud of the fact that that's something we all could do. We're all going to remember it, and like you said, Gabby, we get Kelly up there next year, and you know, have some more fun. I liked it.
Deerpalooza.
Right?
Doepalooza.
We've already got next year on the calendar, so we're set and ready to go.
Yeah, it was definitely a trip. You know, and I got a few pictures in here I do want to throw in here at the end. Dan only got to see what Gabby and I were actually taking photos of on the way home.
Yeah, I was driving, so these guys were like taking their cameras and looking back, and oh, that's a good shot. Oh, that's a great shot.
You know, but we were blessed to have one of the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen going down over Lake Michigan as we drove back and got to the bridge. It was simply a breathtaking
I tell you
scene.
what, in the rearview mirrors, all you could see was that orange.
Yeah, and orange it was. It was like the sky was on fire. You know, and I wanted to throw a couple in here, but it was...
Good old Mackinac Bridge.
Yeah, it was simply spectacular. I've got a bunch of pictures. I think I took 30 or 40, and it was just incredible. So to end the trip, crossing the bridge, coming back home, with 4 deer in the back and being able to see a sunset like that was just spectacular.
Exactly. I made for a good first weekend in November in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Mm-hmm. And we didn't die on snowy roads.
Right? So we'll see what the second weekend of going back to the UP. I'll leave tomorrow, head back up to deer camp for 2 days of bow and opener, and see how that works out.
I'll be making a quick stop in Saginaw tomorrow night and jump up in the morning, Saturday morning, making my trip up, probably getting in the woods Saturday evening, bow hunting Saturday evening, Sunday, and then looks like we've got a good cold front coming in Sunday night. Looks like we're going to have a couple inches of snow on the ground where I'm at Monday morning for the opener, which, oh, what a blessing. I mean, that's you can't ask for anything better
Right.
than a nice snow-covered ground, a couple inches of snow on an opener.
Exactly. And so for me, I don't know where I'm going to sit, Gabby. Either I'm going to sit in the back by the cabin, or I'm going to sit in your spot.
Tell you what, that guy's been showing his face.
I know, right? So I might be sitting there, and
Make him eat lead.
hopefully it'll show up on Saturday.
There you go. Get it done early. That way you can sit back and take it easy.
And I'm all for that.
So, we showed a lot of pictures tonight, showed the video of Gabby walking up on our deer. For those of you on the podcast, that's the reason you need to watch the live stream.
You got to watch the live stream, or you got to watch it on YouTube, and I release it on YouTube. Now, this episode won't get on probably till later next week, because I won't have time tonight to switch it over and get it over to YouTube, but I'll get it on, and you got to check it out, folks, because I tell you what, the video is priceless.
It was. Thanks for the show. We had a good time watching you do that, Gabby.
We did.
Oh yeah, no. You know, I was laughing my butt off as I'm watching this thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally did that. Oh, why did I? Yeah, no, it's fantastic. You're welcome.
That's what memories are made for.
That's right.
Are made out of. So, now talking about next week, are you going to be back in time?
I
for
will
the show?
not be back next week.
Okay, so we're not going to do a show
Unless
next
you
week?
want me to call in from the UP.
We may or may not. It's just going to be one of them weeks where we decide. Week after that will be the week before Thanksgiving.
So we'll have a show then.
Okay.
So
And maybe we'll
we'll probably be recapping gun season.
recapping gun season, seeing what's going on. Who knows what'll be going on
Exactly.
in the outdoors between now and then.
And then we're into Thanksgiving,
Yep.
and then Christmas.
There
And
you
then
go.
we got a couple interviews coming up in December. We're going to have Robert Blosser to finish out the year with Yamaha, talk about how his fun year went. And we're going to have Island Armory on. We're going to talk about suppressors, building a rifle. We're going to talk to them. Some great news hopefully we'll have for December from them. We're just waiting on confirmation of a few things. And then we'll get into probably the holidays and end of the year.
It's going to be here before you know it.
Exactly.
And then we'll be into ice fishing, so.
Right?
All right. So, Gabby, thank you for spending some time with us tonight, recapping your story. It was a blast. I thoroughly enjoyed, sharing camp with you and Danny both. For you guys having me up there, I had a blast, and look forward to doing it again real soon.
Absolutely, we definitely got to do it again.
So
Next year, last week of October.
we'll go ahead and wrap up the show. Hang on with us here when we're done. We'll talk afterwards. But for those of you who are on the podcast, make sure you give us a like, follow, share the show if you could, please. It helps us, helps people who support us. Do the same over on iTunes if you're listening there. Give us a review. And for those of you here watching the live stream, do the same for us. Give us a like, follow, share, and share the show if you would. Tell everybody about us and help spread the good word. So other than that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Yeah, and sign off. And everybody out there, make sure you're safe out there in the woods this week, in the next 2 weeks actually.
Treat every gun as it's loaded. Don't
Absolutely.
be stupid. Point it at things you're not going to shoot.
Bingo. Be safe. Be extremely safe. Have fun though. And once again, I want to give a shout out to all the veterans out there.
Absolutely.
On this Veterans Day, without y'all, we couldn't be doing what we do. So thank you. Our hats off to you. That'll do it for us this week, folks. We'll see y'all again maybe next week, but if not, definitely the week after. So y'all take care. Have a great firearm deer season here in Michigan.